Hello and welcome everybody to Booze Hour Cloud Edition today. Today I've got on Jon Calalang, who I will bring on in just a short moment here, but a couple things that I will go through first. Number one, there is a link in the description to claim some stickers from me. Let me get a good shot of that. There they are. I've paid handsomely for these stickers, so I would love to give them away. I will send them to anybody who signs up via that link. You will, in addition to the value that you get out of the stickers, you will also get subscribed to my weekly newsletter as well. So all the more reason to. North America only. I mean, anybody can sign up for the newsletter, but I'll send the stickers to anybody in North America. Second thing is there was if anybody is on my LinkedIn, you would have seen this. I think I posted this to Twitter. Yeah, I did post it to Twitter as well. But if you check out the YouTube channel, which you should be subscribing to. So if you're watching via YouTube right now, there is a link right over here to hit subscribe if you have not already. If you're watching via LinkedIn right now, head over to the YouTube, which is youtube.com/DarylandBoo. And then you can subscribe on there. That way you don't actually have to be on the LinkedIn platform to actually see when I'm going live. It's a lot more handy for that. Just click on the bell for notifications on YouTube and you'll see when uploads happen and when lives happen as well. Now, there was a video that I uploaded just on Tuesday, I think, and I posted a short trailer on LinkedIn and on Twitter as well, and on the Instagram page as well, the Booze Hour Instagram page, which has all the thumbnails from all of our shows here. That one was just last week. Daryl and I got to do some travel, business travel, for the first time since March, and so it was, obviously an opportunity for me to get the camera out, bring it along. Show everybody kind of behind the scenes of what some of that looks like. I would do more behind the scenes here, but it's basically just me sitting in front of this camera for 8 hours a day. So, or longer than that. So that's not as exciting as actually going out. So we went to Victoria, got to observe all the safety precautions that are in place on BC ferries. A lot of seats were taped off and whatnot. Explored that a bit. The hotel that we go to is a little bit different now as well. Masks are required in the indoor areas besides the restaurant when you're eating there. And then did a couple meetings as well. And then for anybody who owns a Tesla, I went through a couple superchargers. I went to the Swasan one, which I'd been to before, and then went to the supercharger that is in Victoria, which is a fairly recent one. It's come up, I believe, in the last year or so. So I did some of that as well, but worth checking out. I didn't spend a whole lot of time putting it together. It's only a 6-minute video, but it's still, there, Dan Edgar is subscribed. So I thought it was still cool to be able to document that kind of stuff. And I'm looking forward to doing more of that as well. And so, I'm not going to make any promises, but some of the content will just kind of shift more towards a bit of that as I get opportunities to actually share some of the stuff that's happening besides me sitting in front of this camera all day, which you guys get to see in this format. So speaking of that, next week, in the last couple of weeks, I haven't done any of the community edition, but I'm kind of reviving some of that. Just had some PTO and then started to book people as I got back from PTO, and then had to push out a couple things. So it's only next week that we're starting that up again. First person that will be on in this new series will be Nancy Gabor. And Nancy is really interesting in that she works in healthcare and has for a long time actually worked on digitization of healthcare. And a lot of the conversations that we have nowadays are around business transformation and digital transformation within the business. And so looking at how that's affected healthcare recently with things like COVID, and she's got a lot of insight that she can share on how digital transformation has worked in a particular industry. So I thought that'd be a cool conversation to have. And then another conversation that I have after that, that one is formally booked as well, and that one will be on real estate. And that both real estate and healthcare there's a lot of face-to-face that happens with there. And so with COVID and with the changes that have to take place in industries like that, I thought it'd be interesting to have those chats, because for the folks that I talk to all the time, sometimes they struggle to think through, how does my business, how does my industry actually digitally transformate? And so it's different for everybody, different for every industry. Those are two examples of how those industries have tackled it, at least from their perspective. So cool conversations to have. All right. So a couple other things I mentioned, the website. If you go to darylandboo.com, I will post. I got to get back to updating that calendar. I didn't for this week, but there's a calendar on there that will have all of the live streams as they get booked. So I'll get those updated on there. And yeah, besides that, I think we have all the announcements. I think that's all of them. Okay, cool. I will bring on my guest now, Jon Calalang.
Hey, man.
who is wearing a matching shirt to me. We discussed that earlier, but we thought it'd be appropriate to sync up.
I think you have another announcement. I'm pretty sure I saw you crash on your mountain bike.
Oh yeah, there's that too. Oh, so if that's all the more reason to follow the Instagram page, because the Instagram page is like really behind the scenes. And so I posted a picture of me. That's my first crash on my mountain bike so far. And so, everybody I talk to, including Jon, has broken their clavicle mountain biking. And I'm like, okay. And fun fact about me that I've shared with a few people at this point, I have never had surgery or broken a bone before, and I've never even had stitches before. And so now I've picked up this mountain biking to go along with my kids. And, day 3 of mountain biking, I have, it was a pretty light crash. It was just some dirt slipped out from under me, and the bike went one way and I went the other way.
Yeah. Well, there's always things you can aspire to, right? Like stitches or broken clavicle.
Yes. Next purchase is going to be some padded shorts, or at least the liners for the shorts, because I think I got up a lot slower than my kids would have gotten up from that. So I need to protect the hips and whatnot.
Yeah, broken hip. You don't want to be the dad with a broken hip right now.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, I thought there were pricey sports out there. Like, I ski and snowboard, or I snowboard, my kids ski, and I'm like, oh, I got to pay for, season passes every year for this. Started looking into mountain biking. Oh my goodness. Like, these bikes, when we were on the hill climbing up, I can start to recognize the bikes that are going to cost like $10,000 that are just cruising right along past me. Not even e-bikes, not even getting into that, but just like really tricked out bikes, and then all the gear as well. Oh, we got a comment from Terry. If it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. I think. Oh yeah, you've chatted with Terry before, but it's yeah. Oh, Terry's got a picture of him on a bike as well, so that's appropriate. Yeah, Terry showed me.
I don't know. I can't really tell. Maybe it could be mountain biking.
Yeah, Terry can chime in on that. He was working on me with fat bikes. And then I ended up getting a bike with plus size tires as a bit of a compromise, maybe a hardtail. And that's worked out well so far. But yeah, going back to the parts, like all the gear, like every set of pads is like $100. The helmets can go anywhere from $100 to like $500 or more. And then getting these hip pads and shorts and stuff, and the shoes.
It's an investment in your bodily safety.
Yeah,
that's what all those are.
I got to think like, okay, I'm gonna save some money on not really paying for lift tickets or passes, but I'm still skiing and snowboarding with the kids anyways. But at least I'm not paying for that. But then at the same time, I'm basically riding this bike that I know is going to get trashed, because like, when you're coming down and you crash, you might crash and the bike is going to crash as well, and inevitably get damaged as well. So it seems like a money pit, but it's fun. So
it is, and it is fun, and you live with it.
And so I mentioned you've broken your clavicle recently. Are you fixed up at this point?
No. So I got an x-ray last week. And 2 of my screws are backing out. So it's getting worse and better. Yeah. So there's 5 screws in it, and 2 of them are slowly backing out. So I'm not allowed to do anything with my arm. again for another month to see how far they come. If that was part of some accident or something I did last month, or if they're like just going to fully come out and then they'll have to take all the plating system back out again.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, good times. Feel free to send up your bike. I mean, I won't damage it too badly.
You want to borrow it for a little bit? Like,
Yeah. It would be, I mean, I'm finding it interesting in, you see everybody going up and they're on soft tails, and then I've got my hardtail and I feel secure on the hardtail. But I can't imagine with, with the soft tail, with the travel like that, if I'll actually feel more secure on a bike like that, or if I just have to learn how to flow with the bike as it makes its movements through the bumps.
Yeah, I think there's some, we're never going to get to our topic today, are we? I think in the hardtail, it holds to the ground better, right? Just because of the way that it's pushed gravity resistance against the way you're riding. But on a soft tail, you have to move with the bike versus having the bike hold it. And that's something that, like, why I have a broken collarbone is I'm not particularly good at that. Is when you're going over terrain, you have to float across the bike to be able to move where the traction is going to land. Where a hardtail, you get kind of assistance because it doesn't move, right? It's always resistance of you and gravity pushing on the bottom of the, the back of the wheel. So it's different.
Right.
But you also get, you don't get as tired as fast, right? You get some absorption in the the ride. So there's some benefits to it.
Yeah, Dan Edgar has a good comment here. Had a suspicion John had a few.
That's totally true. Before I had a broken collarbone with loose screws.
So maybe that's a good segue. Dan Edgar, previous guest of the show, is Nginx product owner, product manager at this point. Nginx Sprint was this week. I didn't mention it on the newsletter, but Nginx Sprint was this week. All of the content, if people hit the Nginx landing page, all of the content is on there. So I would encourage everybody to check that out. Today, we wanted to actually talk about Ingress Controller, though, Kubernetes Ingress Controller. So, since we actually, in our last discussion, we didn't even chat about it anyway. So this isn't even just an update from the last chat, but this might be just an overview for people who haven't looked at it in detail before. Now, I think a lot of folks probably, if they're tuning in because they want to learn more about it, they probably know a little bit about it, but maybe we could start from some point early in the exploratory process of looking at what this can do for folks.
Yeah. So Dan is over the whole thing, I think, technically for NAP or Nginx App Protect. It started, I think, 2 releases ago in Nginx Plus, and then about a release behind that is where Kik got it. So Kubernetes Ingress Controller for Nginx Plus got it in 1.8. And that's what I have to show today, is where you can instantiate that protection suite at the ingress level. And the reason that becomes interesting is because, well, for one, it was already there in the ModSec side, which isn't going away. But we were able to move down some of the logic that existed from what came from the big IP Nginx world of advanced WAF, and then pushed it into Nginx, and then pushed it again into Kik. And it being in Kik is nice because at that point you can have security at the level of the app. So if I'm going to build an ingress for new service, I have the ability to specify via an annotation that it's going to pull in an application protection profile. And I can do all of that as a Kubernetes person. I don't have to talk to Boo or anyone else. I can do all of that from the very beginning. And there's new features that come into that as well, like being able to eventually, well, not really eventually, you can do this right now with the Edge version of Kik, pull in like an open API file and have it actually wrap the ingress with an open API file protecting the API itself. So, and then it gets more granular as time goes on as we add new features. But being able to say security at instantiation is pretty powerful. And then I can do all the troubleshooting from there. We're actually going to hopefully see this today. I can do like a request, NAP will pick it up, it'll block it, it throws back an error page that looks just like ASM. And then I can go look in a syslog to see what the error was. If I wanted to open it or deny it, I can change the policy. So it's it's pretty impressive. Like when you think about using ASM was all encompassed. This is like taking the logic of ASM and breaking it out. I get to look at logs at one spot. I get to define a policy in one spot, which defining a policy in a flat file in BIG-IP ASM for a very long time was a pain. And then that went, of course, to the declarative WAF, which is what NAP uses. So there was some really cool stuff that went with that.
Yeah. And maybe as we're going through your stuff, or maybe towards the end, we can kind of compare and contrast, because people will have options to do this on BIG-IP, traditional BIG-IP, adding WAF to their ingress. And then people have options to do this on Nginx now as well, having WAF on there as well. And so it probably causes a bit of confusion for folks, and we can hopefully clear that up.
Yeah, I have it through everything. I was going to focus on this one. We can talk about the differences, what features are in each one. I think more than not, it's going to come down to the business environment. Like even before I show any of this stuff, if you're accustomed to working in Kubernetes, this is going to make way more sense, right? Or working in Nginx, because that's where you work. That's your space. If you're, and to that point, all you have to do is pass a security audit of the policy. So now I can just like submit a request to the security team and says, this is my policy, right? Can you bless or, deny the policy, or do we need to add anything to this? And then from there, I can continue to work on with whatever I'm doing. So that makes it significantly nicer than having all these handhold pieces of I need to put some here and some there. BIG-IP is going to do other stuff, right? It's likely going to do TLS offloading for Kik. It's going to do DOS protection. It's going to do all kinds of other security things for you. Maybe auth, right? But for this part, if I want to work in my space, and I know for like 3 years, everyone was like, we need to put all the people in a room together. And all that did was cause a ton of confusion where people didn't actually work. So you end up seeing these people break out again. You need knowledge transfer, but you don't necessarily need everybody lumped in a room.
Yeah.
So.
Good point.
Yeah, that was a ramble. But yeah, let me show what I built. And to be fair, I did this last night. I was like, you know what? I should probably put something together. And there's like Slack requests for features in Nginx where I was like, I don't think this works the way I think it works. It doesn't. And the documentation is all there. So maybe if you are following along for the technical side, I can show you where you find all the right pieces, because that was pretty confusing for me to be able to do. And I read backwards. I've noticed this recently, and my wife called me out on it. I'll read documentation from basically the middle. And then I have to go back in the documentation to figure out why something is that way. And I don't know if I do that as a learning problem or not. Like here's all the pieces, and then I have to go, back. Where did this piece come from? Why is this needed? But it makes more sense, so I can explain it. But I did that with this, and it sucked. Like there was so much stuff that was missing. It's like, oh yeah, there's something that I need help with.
It's a learning feature. I'm finding that too. I mean, I'll chat while you're pulling the stuff up then. My kids, I've mentioned this, we're going to do homeschooling this year. And so I think a huge advantage is being able to adjust and adapt based on the kids' learning style. And so if you discover that, hey, they want to consume information in a certain way, maybe they want to read everything from the middle first and then go backwards. You don't have to drag down an entire class. Maybe that's not the best example, but examples like that where people are going to learn in their own way, and let's not stop them. Let's encourage the way that they can consume things the quickest.
Yeah. I think it does have to do with an engineering background, where in order for me to understand it, I have to know where all the pieces fell into play. So if I get something like a toy or a Lego, right? And in order for me to understand how it all works, you basically tear it all back apart again, right? To see how it functions, and then you put it back together. But with documentation, I can't do that. So I don't get documentation that I can decompose. So I start in like a harder spot of the documentation where I know I need something, but I don't know what it is. And then I end up working my way backwards to figure out what that thing is and why it works that way. So it happens on all of the stuff I do, but I don't know if that's just, the loose screw or something else.
That's right. Well, let's get Dan Edgar to weigh in on this.
So, all right. For documentation, it is in the docs.nginx page. It's just little hyperlinks made it significantly easier for me to go build it. You do have to build your own image. Because it is Nginx Plus, you have to have a certain key put together to be able to actually build the Docker image. So that part isn't any different than traditional. It does call out the change. So if I look at Ingress Controller and then there's a new section because of App Protect, if I look in here, it tells me that I'm going to build it with App Protect, right, for Plus. But that pretty much just left me on my own. Like, what does that mean? So you have to go back and then read this part to build the image. So nothing's different except for the call you make. So inside this one, if you go back and you read, and it takes you basically back up to the installation, you pull down the repo, which becomes way more important in like 3 minutes. You pull down the repo, and then it tells you to do a make file for Nginx, which is basically this. But this is the non-NAP version. So you have to know that you need to exchange this with what you saw over here. So it's like it references this and then just says, oh, you have to build it over here. But the order was weird. So it makes sense now. But that was just a weird thing that I had to figure out. Once you get it pushed into a registry, I had all problems with my own registry. Then it had like this basically push it, install the Ingress controller. All of this is exactly the same as it is in the regular one. It's just a different image. But it, again, leaves you to the loss of going back to the other page. So you read it here, then you have to run this command, and then you go back to here and you basically say, oh, I have to read it. And then there's this CLI argument that you have to modify on the regular installation. So there was like 2 spots, and it would have been nicer if it was like all on the Ingress one, where it just called out like it does for OSS and Plus, if it was like OSS Plus and NAP, because then I'd only have to go to one page. So if you're following along in the doc and it doesn't make sense, it's because you have to bounce back and forth.
Well, luckily that has now been documented in Booz Hour, and they can reference this episode.
Do that, right? That should happen. When you get to the configuration, though, this is stuff that is different, right? It does use different things. It uses what are called CRDs for the policy. It uses new annotations, a ton of stuff that's new. This basically walks you through what that is, but it explains it. But if it's all new, it doesn't make total sense. This is a policy. So this is one of the new NAP policies. So this particular one instantiates DataGuard. So DataGuard on Big IP was that client side, like DLP. Well, you can see it in there, right? Masking of data. So it would actually check and see if it matched something. If you're coming from something like an ignore list, it would do all of this stuff in the Big IP. That's part of Nginx App Protect. So it's not just ASM. It has threat feeds. It has DataGuard. It has like some nice stuff in it, right? I guess this was part of ASM. But there's other parts in there as well. So this is telling you about it. And I read through this and I looked at it, and then I actually I messaged Dan and I was like, I don't understand what I'm looking at. Like, I don't understand where this is. And what I needed to do was not ignore all the stuff that's here, but basically just click on this link. So if I click on the link, it tells me how to do all of it. So it gives me the example. It gives me, first grab your public address, then you're going to deploy an app. You're going to deploy a syslog server, which becomes really important here in just a second. This is the policy, the DataGuard policy, how it logs to the syslog server, right? And then down in here, I get to test. So there's like 5 steps to make this work. But when I read it from here, it made no sense. So I ended up jumping over here and I was like, oh, these all make sense because I can actually look through each one to see what they were telling me to do. So you build after you have the container in, you build the ingress, right? And you get to look at the ingress configuration. Here's all those annotations they talk about. Like, oh, it's going to use, and what this is the location of the file. So it's in the default namespace. This is the name of the policy. It's going to do some other things like turn it on, log it. This is how it logs it. This is the destination of the log. So I did all this, I don't know, 3 hours ago. And then it goes through, like, you deploy each one of these things, but as you read it, you can go back and look and see what you were doing. So here's that DataGuard policy. You can modify it. So this is where Dan also referenced some stuff for me later on, was the actual policy itself. It has its own section in the docs, right? Declarative policy. So this is a ton more information about all the options you can put in each one of those sections inside here. So now I can fine tune it, but it starts with, which is essentially OWASP top 10, because that's the base one. And then this one adds DataGuard. So it's a little different than ASM where everything would be there. You define like a base template. You could make your own base template, and then you add things to it that's going to be more specific to what you're working with. Yeah, it's pretty, I mean, that's pretty awesome.
Cleaner.
So, yeah, it's way cleaner. Like this policy seems way smaller because everything is referenced from this. So it's like an additive piece.
Right.
So what I did though was actually install that piece. So I don't know how I show you this with two screens. This is the app that's passing through my ingress. And what that looks like, let me stop sharing this and we'll share the other one. And share. Do you have to mod it? Do you have to push me back into the share? Yeah, every single time. Other one. Did I share the wrong thing? I shared the wrong thing. Good. I'm super helpful. Push that one in there.
There we go.
All right. So I'm in VS Code. This is where I was doing, of course, everything that I was working with. Mine's connected in there. So I have a git ingress. This is my my ingress. So I built one out here. This is the actual deployment. So I deployed the ingress, which then monitors ingress resources inside, inside my Kubernetes environment. And then down here at the bottom, there's an option for turning it on. So in the Nginx kick side, right, I enable app protect. Then it knows based off of the ingress itself, which was what I was calling out on the other side, which policy it's supposed to pull, all those annotations. So it's expecting there to be app protect. And then it's going to harvest information out of the annotations to decide which version of it or which versions of the policy or where to log to. So there's some cool ties to there. There's other parts. I would encourage you to go read all those files instead of the docs. Read the files because you get to see where they build the CRD, which is a custom resource definition, which essentially says all the things that are available in the policy. So as new versions of NAP come out and new features get released, we'll add new things into the CRD, which allow new features to get unlocked. So that's a way to extend Kubernetes. We do it on the big IP side as well, but let's say Nginx, was already there and they've already progressed, farther down that route than like Container Ingress Services has on the big IP side. All right, what am I got in here? Let's clear this up. We're going to have to do this in two different ways because I have to share two screens. And I don't actually, if I share my whole screen, is it going to be really big or do you think that'll be okay?
Let's try.
Let's see.
Ooh, yeah, it's pretty big.
Pretty big. Is it too hard to see?
What if you zoom?
Sure. I don't know. That's pretty big.
It's almost, no, it's pretty small on
here. Let's do this. We'll go back to just sharing the one, and then we'll just make this unshare share all the time. Here we go. What I want to do is do the attack so you can see the attack.
Cool.
So, all right, we're back to this one. Let's make sure my mouse moves. Okay, we're back to this one. So this is the app. The way that they have you practice is essentially inside that, wherever that went, that example went, app protect. So down at the bottom, they give you an example of a way to attack something. So this example is whatever you can see that in there. It's script, right? So it's going to be a script on insecure, and it's going to try to inject some weird header, which is going to trigger, right, like any kind of WAF at this point. So I don't need all of this stuff at the top because I'm putting this in place of on my own ingress, my other one. But I do need to grab this kind of section right here. So if I'm on this page right here, and if I add that little stuff to it, so let's do this. So now I've added that insecure script on it, right? And I hit enter. It fires back the ASM log, right? Or what would be ASM if anyone knew what ASM was in Nginx. So it fires back the support ID, meaning that it triggered, right? It fired on the ingress, and it's not getting back to the app. It's not actually getting back to my container that's running HTTP bin. So it's blocking it at the front. And when you think about how this distributes, that's where it's super interesting. I have one ingress, but I could have 500 of these things. I could have as many as I want because they're all independent and they're all referencing the same WAF policy. So if I had one of them, yeah, I mean, maybe I could overload it because it's a single ingress, but then I could just have like 10 replica sets of the ingress, right? Or 100 or however many I need to handle regular traffic and also security. So that's kind of fun, right? They're all referencing the same policy. And if I modify that policy and apply it, now all of them have it again. So here's where things go to check. So I got back at report ID. I'm going to grab that one. And then now I have to stop sharing and go back to the other share. So share, hopefully I share the right thing. So I'm back in here. When you do the deployment, because of its, testing nature or quick start nature, they have you build a syslog server. If you have your own, send it to that. If you don't, it tells you how to build one. So it's like 3 lines. It basically says deploy this syslog server. It's actually sitting in that example folder that you download for everything. So I have one deployed. This is my syslog pod. What I basically need is the support ID. So that's the support ID that triggered, right, in the request that failed. So now I can query my syslog for the error. So this is my log. So wherever the support ID is, right there, this is my violation. So it was a cross-site scripting. It was blocked, right? This is the support ID. It came from a bunch of other stuff. I could turn this all into some kind of, I don't know, report structure someplace I needed to. Or if I wanted to unlock it, right, now I have information to go modify that policy and open it up. So this wouldn't trigger again later on. That allows me to be able to, test, check. I can do all of that myself as an app admin. So I can deploy a new version of the app. I can test it without having, anybody in the mix. And then I can do functional testing to see if the WAF policy is going to fire. And then if it triggers on things, like I would have a plethora of these tests, right? A plethora of these tests. If it triggers on any of these, make sure that the WAF policy is modified, correct, get buyout from security and install it. And I could do all that myself without having to go outside to another entity or business unit. Yeah. So, I mean, fun, right? Like it's pretty easy to do other than me with documentation problems trying to move myself around in it. I can get through basically everything. And I did this in, I don't know, this morning. I started at 8 o'clock. So I took a shower today. That took some time. So I don't know, it took about an hour to do. Some of the new features that will come out there. This one is just the regular policy for WAF. You will be able to eventually specify policies per URIs or host headers, so multiple on an ingress. And then you'll also be able to specify the open API files, which you can do right now if you pull down the Edge version. I'm using the 1.8 version. So 1.9 will have the open API files. And that takes a location. So it takes another location that pulls in another open API file, which makes it nice because I don't have to manage all of that in one. It's kind of like that template reference. I can reference that thing out externally to pull it in. And Microsoft just happens to host in their repository the HTTP bin Swagger file. So when that's available, I can pull it from the internet knowing that it's always correct, right? Or even from a personal repository. And then at the NAP level, it's doing all of those things. WAF, Open API, threat feeds. It's called out in here that like threat feeds are in here. So cross-site scripting, high accuracy signatures, right? So high accuracy, that's the stuff that came out in threat landscape in Big IP. I forget which version, like 14 maybe, where it was like if and statements. If you're doing this and you're bad, then you're a high accuracy. You match all of these things, so you can reduce the WAF but enforce the threat feeds. That's kind of cool. So
very cool.
Yeah. Basically requires a license because it is Nginx Plus. I don't know that it's going to be that way forever. I've heard rumor of it going back and forth to be able to just buy it for other stuff, but I don't know. So contact your local Nginx rep. And then you need a repository to put it in. So like a registry, not a repository. And you can put it
in Azure.
Mine's all in Azure. Yeah. I don't know if you can here. Let me stop sharing.
And just on the licensing side, folks, contact your local account team. Of course, everyone in BC can just ping me and I can get you set up.
Yeah. So mine is right. This is actually a couple levels of inception. I use Nginx Plus in front of Nginx Kick because of the way I have a demo set up. So this is actually landing me at Nginx Plus, which then has like an upstream of the Kick instances. There's a whole level of inception. I have like every product in this demo, so there's way more to this one, but that's kind of a cool thing. We use console template. So I know on the last call I talked about like console being one of my favorite things. Console template will build Nginx Plus configuration based off of what's in HashiCorp console. So if the container like Kick is registering, then we can take that information, build the Plus configuration as it's scaling. So that allows Nginx to get basically pod information, and then it's all in Azure. You get that fun little CNI hop. So the Nginx Plus instances get to talk directly to the pods, like we do with Big IP. So some fun, cool. Some fun nerdy things there.
Console template is free.
Yeah, it happens. It's not, of course, it's not ours, but yeah, console like HashiCorp console. It's a product called Console Template. You can basically template anything. Nginx being one of their supported like descriptors, I guess. Yeah.
Very awesome.
Yeah. Anything else? Anything else I ran into this? No, you just need the cert and key. Follow the docs kind of backwards. Again, doc recommendation, put all 3 versions in one spot. Otherwise, you get confused engineers trying to figure out where everything lives. Once you have this set up, you can make it even more granular. So some of the other fun examples that are inside here, this is that folder that you basically, or repository you copy down when you build your image. Like all the image build stuff happens right at this level. You can see the make file sitting in here. So it builds, you basically drop your certs and key in here, you run make, it builds the image, it pushes it where it needs to go. And then there's a ton of stuff in examples. And this is where, as soon as I went to examples, it all made sense because I like the things. But here's where you can start to layer in more parts. Yes, it's WAF and it's blocking, but there's also examples for like JOT. So if I wanted to add the JOT annotations inside my ingress plus the NAP annotations inside my ingress, now I have authorization and I have WAF/threat feeds. So it's not just me blocking all bad actors. I can actually make sure that it's a real entity that's coming to me that I should see. And then from there, I can say, okay, well, are you doing something malicious? Real entity. So you're layering on all the pieces you should have, right? Authorization and security at that point. And there's so like just seeing some of these like per path, this is for all of them. But then I could use the Big IP to, build a JOT, and then this could validate it. There's all kinds of fun stuff that happens at this point when you actually get to put it all in one spot. And I think NAP enabled that, right? Putting it in one spot.
Yeah, pretty cool and super scalable.
Yeah, like infinite, because there's there's nothing in there that it doesn't know about, which is why it works so well as a gateway. There's nothing it's reliant on. I mean, it's reliant on all those files that it needs to pull down, but those aren't going to work if it can't get them, it can't build the image. So those are going to fail way early in the process. So like layering all this stuff in here, there's a ton of other fun examples. gRPC, that comes up pretty often, of course. WebSockets, being able to do ingress with non-HTTP, right? If you're fighting that headache with HA proxy and you need to do something other than web, like doing it in here, but then you can also do other things too, like this one. So there's some good stuff in here. Don't forget there's examples for stuff that you want to do and then find them. So.
Very cool. Alrighty. I think that's it, unless you had anything else you wanted to bring up.
No, I don't think so. This is it for, like, I can do a CIS update later on, but for Kick, right, they release about every, say, 40 days. I think it's somewhere right in there, because this one is about a week old. The next one is scheduled for the end of September. So I don't know, maybe it's every month. Maybe it's every month. So it's going to change. It's way more fast in its release cycle than, of course, like the automation tool chains on the Big IP side. So by the time you watch this, if you're not watching it live right now, it's likely there is another version which unlocks new features that does other really cool, fancy things. So, yeah,
Cool.
all about
Yeah.
all about enablement of the individual teams. So,
Yes, totally awesome. All right. With that, if anybody is listening to this later on or watching this later on, check to see if there is another appearance of Jon that's newer that might have more up-to-date stuff, or just check the repo and see if there's a newer version on here than what Jon showed on here.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on, Jon.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm glad we could be shirt brothers and talk about mountain bikes. So.
Yeah, I know. We gotta, eventually the borders will open. You'll be able to come up here, and maybe we should have like a booze hour live mountain biking event.
Yeah.
We'll
I
figure
don't know when
that
we're
out.
going to be able to do that, or when I'll be able to come across the border. I'm also jealous you get to do meetings like in person. I don't know what that is anymore.
Yeah, a small amount of them, and everybody's taking precautions and stuff like that, so we understand that it's going to be few and far between. But it was nice to just get out, and that's why I was excited to bring the camera along. Like,
yeah,
I'm out of the house. I'm not in front of the camera, but I am in front of the camera. May as well at this.
I'm a sucker for this too, and I know I'm gonna keep talking about Dan because he's an awesome guy. But we all invest in these nice cameras now because we're sitting behind them for 8 hours a day. And then you feel awful that you have this expensive, high quality camera sitting behind that you have to take it with you everywhere. So like I have lame footage of like my kids riding their bike, but it's like the 100th time they've ridden their bike that I require this video or record this video. Like nothing's changed in the first 99 times I recorded it, but I feel like I have to record it 100 times just because I want an investment out of what I have behind the screen.
Well, not even that. So not to get too far off track here and not close up the discussion, but I've been putting together, now that I know a little bit more about putting together videos, and I put together videos on my personal YouTube as well. That's like, people are free to follow that one as well. That's like my experimentation stuff. So if you were to actually watch some of my stuff on my personal YouTube and then see what I've put together for the Daryl and Boo, the most recent uploaded video on there, you'll actually see how I actually got to the point where I could edit a video together, like what it looks like with what I just uploaded. It was like weeks of actually playing with editing first. But, I bring that up because on my personal YouTube, I have found, once I kind of resurrected it, found all these old videos that I was uploading of the kids. I'm like, why didn't I put up way more of these? I mean, probably at the time I was reasoning with myself that this is all public stuff, but there isn't anything crazy on there. And I have a few videos of the kids doing fun stuff when they were younger, and I wish I had more of it. So now I will make a point of, putting together more stuff that involves the kids that they can remember, they can look back on and enjoy it. And it was well produced, not just like, all of our phones take amazing video now, but some of the older stuff was not as great, and having something well put together is gonna be nice to check out. All right, cool. Well, that's enough chatter for now. I know we can go on forever, but we'll cut her short there, and or we'll cut her long there, and then we'll look to have you on in future to talk maybe more CIS stuff or updates and stuff.
Yep, sounds good.
Very cool. All right, thanks, folks. Check out Monday. We'll be back on. Daryl and I will be back on a Monday, and then I'll have my my usual, the live stream that I mentioned next week as well. All right, bye for now, folks. Thanks for checking this out today. If you're watching via YouTube right now, go ahead and click subscribe down below. Also click the bell for notifications. That way you will find out when we are dropping a new video or when we're going live. Also, there's darylandboo.com. If you head over to that, leave your name and email address, we will drop a weekly technical newsletter in your inbox every Monday. Also, this is available via podcast, Apple, Google, Spotify. Head over to one of those, hit subscribe, and you'll be able to listen to us in the car on your commute or during a walk or a run. Thank you very much, and we will see you next time.